What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about NIO. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So this past week was rather rough for the broader market as well as NIO. So NIO went down 7.41%. In my opinion, a lot of that had to do with just its technicals and just being artificially suppressed through algorithmic trading. And I think that's been more of a common scenario over the past month rather than anything for NIO. But there's been a lot of fears in the market, a lot of which is linked to consumers as well as the shutdown. Luckily enough, we did get some vague updates on Friday, near the market did close. But US Senate Democrats on Friday scaled back their demands to end the 38-day government shutdown, the longest in history, but said they would only support a temporary spending bill if it includes a one-year extension of expiring Affordable Care Act subsidies. So in general, market took this as a pretty strong positive. NIO piggybacked off of that optimism and really pushed higher. So that's one thing. And so at the time doing this video, there hasn't really been any kind of true developments to this. So we'll wait and see how this does play out. But if there is a true end to the shutdown, markets are going to be really moving higher. NIO will be able to piggyback off of that. So that could be a good thing. But we do also have a lot of big speculative names putting out their earnings this upcoming week. So no different than what happened with Palantir. They hit a home run earnings, but Wall Street just looked at their valuation and just said, no, this is too much. So potentially that could happen this time around. And I'm looking at 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗧, non-revenue generating company that's up massively, but you guys get what I'm saying. Of course, I think a lot of these have the opportunity to once again spook the broader market, so we'll wait and see how that does play out. And then speaking of earnings, I was anticipating for them to announce it last week, but most likely NIO will be announcing their earnings this upcoming week because they historically like to give a 2-week buffer when they announce their earnings to the date. And so for instance, even Seeking Alpha, I brought this up I think last video, it does show November the 14th. A couple of my other brokers show a estimated date of the 19th. So it could be all over the place. So we'll have to wait and see. But one thing that does typically happen is when NIO does announce it, it kind of causes a certain level of FOMO. So that is maybe one thing that NIO does truly need, is just to announce the date of their earnings. So that should be a fun old time. But aside from that, there's also a lot of big data coming out. So even this evening, so Saturday, we have inflation, PPI. So a lot of big things for that. Tuesday, we also have vehicle sales, new loans, money supply. Thursday, we have retail sales, industrial production, and unemployment. So a lot of big data. And a lot of articles have lately been coming out fairly bearish because of exports. So exports did come in as well as imports and balance of trade Thursday after hours, and that came in at -1.1. Forecast was 3.8. That is completely polar opposite to what was kind of anticipated, and based on the data, this wasn't great whatsoever. So in general, I think that spooked some individuals, maybe. So we'll have to wait and see how this does play out. But regrettably, the last committee meeting, they said that they weren't really looking at any kind of stimulus. So if we get more and more negative data from now until I think the end of November, potentially we could see some optimism for stimulus. So again, that might be potentially on the table. Specific to NIO, aside from them announcing their earnings, there really hasn't been that much. Only thing that kind of came out over the weekend so far was this. And so it was looks like a auto blogger and a former NIO employee kind of just talking about the Firefly. And so the last numbers that did come out was 5912, and that was delivered. And it shows that based on this, the full capacity for Firefly is 6,000 a month. So generally they are at capacity. The last couple times has been roughly around that kind of 6,000, 5,900-ish. So that kind of makes sense. I know in the past couple of videos I said that I think there was a little bit higher expectations, but maybe they are at full capacity. But let me know your general thoughts on that. Of course, can't trust everything you see on the internet, so do your own due diligence. I don't know if Trader Chris has vetted this Clara who is a auto blogger and also a former NIO employee. But then again, I think everyone is a former NIO employee from whenever they post stuff. But NIO seems to be pretty on top of anyone being fraudulent, kind of saying that they are something that they're not. They like to kind of shut that down right quick. So we'll wait and see how that does play out. Going into this upcoming week, 10.51% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 145.48 million shares overall being shorted. DTC has somewhat been maintaining itself over like the last week, and that's because shorts haven't really done anything of any significance since pretty much October the 24th. Cost to borrow minimum is negative, so negative 0.2, so that does mean that there is a broker or brokers paying people to short NIO. So definitely some signs of manipulation. From a bull standpoint, you see a consensus for it to be roughly around that 7 to 750. Bears are anticipating for this upcoming week for it to be sub kind of 7, with it closing exactly at that 686. That does mean that the 650 and below strike prices from last week are in the money, and you have 2,000 at the 650, and that is it. Looking forward into this upcoming week, you have 19,000 at the 8, 9,000 at the 750. So if NIO gets close to one of those strike prices, you might see shorts wake up a little bit just to artificially suppress it. But right now, with it at and closing at 686, it is trading between this pivot and this S1. So 652 is going to be a strong support that wasn't tested on Friday. 718 and then 785 is going to be in the next strong target / resistance. Looking right over here, so on the actual chart, kind of had a little bit more of a technical breakdown. I think in general, you do need to have 2 confirmed days to signal a trend. So on Friday, it did break below that 50-day moving average, which generally is a big deal. Kind of bounced off of that as well, October the 16th. So there was a lot of fear, but that was short-lived. So I think Monday is going to be a very, very important day based on the technical. So if it does close below that 50-day moving average, which is sitting at 696, then you could see more for the consolidation. So 50-day moving average historically is a big deal for NIO. Usually result in like a 20 to 25% push lower. So something again just to keep in mind. There's a lot of optimistic things coming out this week to really push the broader market and NIO higher. So I'm not too concerned over this. And even if it does consolidate, I think I'll start going back to kind of selling some more puts. I did buy some recently last week, so that was the first time I did buy in a very long time. So if it does start to consolidate, then I'll just start to sell puts. Going into this upcoming week though, stochastic RSI is neutral, so it's not really overbought nor oversold. And then looking at the market position from Friday, you see a lot less willing buyers. A couple of strong walls, a very strong wall up until about that 667. So just keep that in mind. And conveniently, that is the low for Friday. But aside from that though, you have a lot more willing sellers, and it's all kind of close to where the actual price is right now. So I think a lot of that has to do with just day traders, swing traders, and things along those lines. But there really hasn't been that much in articles coming out associated to NIO. So it's been rather quiet aside from that one thing that I did bring up from the former NIO employee. So I think overall this upcoming week, we will be most likely in the green. Of course, NIO, well, there's a lot of different things that could happen. And if we don't get any clarity on the shutdown, then most likely we might have a full broad market consolidation, and through algos, NIO might get dragged down. But in my opinion, I do feel that we will be closing between this pivot and this S1. Not enough to really get above that pivot point of that 718 just quite yet, but most likely we'll just kind of trade within this range until we kind of get to the oversold status, and then that's where we should really break higher. And NIO putting out the date of their earnings also should be a good catalyst in among itself. So let me know your thoughts on NIO and where you feel things are going to be going in the short term. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And then one final thing, pop over to my stacked account. Just made this, so if you're looking for swing trades, day trades, pop over there and take a look. A lot of them have been absolutely on point and bangers, despite NIO and much of the market really pushing lower last week. A lot of my swing trades have been on point, so definitely pop over there and check that out. Link in the description below and also the comments. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.